Today I'm going to show you how to build this Petskey keyboard as a replacement keyboard for the Commodore PET. Stay tuned. So today I'm going to try out something new. I'm going to build the Petskey keyboard from TexElec, which is a replica of a Commodore PET keyboard using Cherry MX switches, and the difficulty is to actually solder these SMD components into that simulate the shift lock key handling. So the schematics is from the Petskey documentation. There are a number of parts here. So we're going to check out if we have all of them now. .7 microfarad capacitor here, and this is amazing how small this is. If you look at the normal radial capacitors, but the difference here, this is only rated for 10 volts even, so maybe that's part of the reason why they were able to do it, to make them so small. And then we have the 3.6 kilo ohm, and that should be the last one off the list. So we have all parts here, and now let's see how I'm able to do the soldering. So the first thing I'm going to build here to solder in is this 4.7 microfarad capacitor into the place of CA2 here on the board. And actually you really have to do them one by one, because there is no way that you're actually able to distinguish them from another once they have been mixed up. So really have to have to keep them into their bags so they know the names, and you should not lose them when they're somewhere on the board or on your workbench. So let's see. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some solder onto the pins, which is probably a little bit too much, but anyway, it's the first try. Crazy. So okay, there you go. And now take it on one side. Oh, shit. Well, it's soldered. I just can't move it anymore. It's totally bad, but well, it seems to work. So on to the next, which is the other capacitor. So the next capacitor is from that large roll. Again, there is no way you can actually distinguish them from one another once they are separated from the documentation. So oops, there you go, and put them back into the bag. That is why I usually stay away from SMT parts, because they are just too tiny to solder manually. Okay, I have taken out another one, like this tiny part here, and this is supposed to go to position CA1, and I'm going to do something differently because of course, I'm here also to practice and to learn, listen and repeat. So I'm putting solder on only onto one of those pads, and then putting the capacitor there. So it's fixed. And then I'm soldering in second side. And then that's it. So let's have a quick look if using my bipometer to see if I've created a short or something. No, it doesn't look pretty, but it works. So okay, on to the next part. In the through-hole parts, I would usually have a specific order in which I'm going to solder the parts together, so it makes it easier to put the board onto the workbench one by one, so you can flip it over, and parts are being kept in place by the weight of the board because they are the highest part. So going from lowest part to highest part. But here, well, I don't think that doesn't really make any sense. So there is the little bugger, and this goes into position of RS3. Soldering one side, taking it apart, soldering, fixing it here. Quickly soldering it on the other side, and maybe fixing the first side again. So, okay. Trying not to heat them for too long, because otherwise the heat would traverse the part and then the other side would also melt again. Let's get to IC1, which is the 6-pin Maxim controller, whatever, chip. And if you're talking about 6 pins, this is just freaking tiny. So I'm not even sure if I can go in there with the scissors. I should probably not do that. Try to pull that out like this. Oh, it's almost falling out already. So there you go. Now we need to understand which is the right direction. That's a good point. So this is now shown from under magnifying glass, and if you look carefully, you can see that there is a small dot on that edge. Okay, yeah. So and this one should be pin 1. And now I guess it's interesting to see if this one should be pin 1. Yeah, as it seems, this tiny marking here on the board is pin 1. And now let's see how if I manage to solder that chip in here with the same technique. I'm just soldering, putting solder on one pad and then going to, where did I put the tweezers? Of course. So, and then I'm going to, I have to use the magnifying glass, I can't see it any. This is crazy. So, sorry if you cannot, if you can't see much, but if I put the magnifying glass in a way that I can see, then the camera cannot see and vice versa, but I have to see because I need to solder. So, I should probably adjust it a little bit to avoid any kind of shortcut. Okay, now it looks a little bit better. Adjust it to my eye, and now let's solder on the other pins. But it's absolutely possible to have that soldered. I hope you can see it on the camera. Yeah, looks good. So it looks like the convention is that this little, you can see it here, there is a little white marking next to the pad, and this is supposed to be the pin 1 marker. So let me just check if so pin 1 should go to RS2. Oh, that's correct. So this is pin 1. Okay. Okay, so we have it. The short lead is the minus side. So the LED goes in like this. Plus to plus and minus to minus. Let's bend the pins for now. And let's see how that works out with that cherry switch. Ah, good that I didn't solder it, because the switch goes in first, of course. So, switch goes in, actually kind of locked, and then short side is minus. I don't need to know, I only need to know where to look. Short side is minus. Yeah, long side is plus, and then put it in here. And then this is how the LED gets soldered together with the switch. So let's solder it. First, let's solder the switch. It's 2 pins. And then solder the LED. Okay. cutting off the leads. So this is now the shift lock key, and the only thing that is left is to put in some 5-volt power here and check it out. So I have put in here the 5-volt supply voltage, and this is the shift lock switch with the LED, and let's see how it works. Excellent. So next is soldering in all the other MX switches, which I'm not going to show here, but fast forward to the finished keyboard now. So here we are with the finished, at least the soldering finished keyboard. All the cherry switches are mounted except for the space key, and why that is I'll come to in a minute. So what is now missing is are the keycaps, the actual parts that come on top of those switches. And there are different options and different profiles, and those key switches, if you look at them at some keyboards, they have angled keys, key tops, so, and they get steeper from front to back. So if you have key caps that go into the last row, you cannot put them into the front row because they are just steeper. So you have to look out for the right angle of those keycaps. So I got me two options because I actually have two Petskeys. One is an so-called OEM keyboard that has angled keys, I think, with different angles and a lot of keys. And so I will have to see how I can make them fit onto the Petskey keyboard. Yeah, but I also found another provider from China anyway, and they have what is called an XDA profile set of keycaps. And an XDA or DSA profile is one that has all the keys with the same basically flat top with the same angle for all keys. And as you can probably see, maybe there are a lot of keys in that set. And actually what is interesting here is there are many of those keys of the different lengths that you can use for the shift keys, return key, and so on. And if I remember correctly, there are a number of different space keys, because the space key is of different lengths and different type of keyboard, and I will see what fits best to that one. And that is also the reason why there are those different options on the Petskey keyboard. You can have a single space bar that's using a single switch. You can have a longer space bar that's using 2 switches or even 3 switches, which then gets a little bit heavy, as I've been told. And there is the option to actually use separate keys next to the space key for different purposes that you can remap them. So let me see how it goes. So what I'm using as a model is my real Commodore PET graphics keyboard, which is rather old. I got it separately without the PET actually, and I have been building it into my self-built PET clone. And this is what I'm going to use as a model here. But first let's have a look at the space key. And as you can see, there are a number of options with those three keys in here, and as it looks like, the second option here seems to be the one that fits best, because this one is, no, it's not the right one. So let's look at the next one. Interesting, it's still not the right one. I hope we'll find the right one. So the next one is, and this is too wide. This is crazy. Bummer. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. There's one last option in this part of the set. And this is this key. And this seems to be the right size. Okay. Okay. So I got that one. And I will be using I will be using two on one on either side, and then I will also populate switches for the extra keys. To install those switches, you just look at the orientation and just push them in. Hopefully not bending any pins. Again, pushing them in. They almost fit like without soldering, but of course then there is no contact in there. So let's do the soldering. I'm actually having a fan here so the fumes don't get too close, get blown away. They're not that healthy, so I should switch it on. The soldering is done. Excellent. Let's see how it works out. As you can see, the profile is symmetric. So you can just, the orientation doesn't matter. And then, let's see. And hope. Excellent. Yeah, obviously they have an orientation. One side of the cross seems to be a bit thicker and the other side seems to be a bit thinner. So if it doesn't fit in right the first time, you have to probably turn it 90 degrees. And there's one thing I don't like. As you can see, if you push too hard, the keyboard bends. I put in some distance holders here on the side where they have the holes for the screws. But there is no support here under the middle of the keyboard, so I'll probably add something later on. So, and here we have the first part. See what we can use as a key. This one is too large, so this one is a bit smaller and fits. Excellent. As you can see here, actually you should be using some keys, the keycaps that are a slight bit larger than the usual ones. So I have to take them out again. And let me get the key tool if I find it. So you can actually, when you get those keycaps, you can actually usually ask for getting such a key remover as well. I'm using it for the first time, so bear with me. That's probably, no, I'm not trying to take out the whole switch. Okay, so there you go. Okay. So now let's have a look and see what we can use as, say for example, the shift key or the return key. This is for the shift key, and we can use this one for the return key. It's actually smaller, but it's the same as the original PET. And then we have the shift lock key here. And then we have a larger one for shift key. So it looks exactly like the real thing. Isn't it nice? Just needs some printing on the keycaps. So this is the second option of the keyboard keycaps that I have, and it's an OEM keycap. I'm pretty sure I actually ordered DSA profile. And if you look closer, you can see that the keycaps are angled differently, and so it will be really messy if you look at the division, the slash, which is on top row of a PC keyboard, actually goes to one row below, and so on. So this is not what I'm going to do with the second one. Actually, there is, I just saw today, there is a VIC 2020 coming out on GitHub, and they have 3D printed keycaps for a VIC 20 keyboard, including all the graphics characters, and I'll have to look into that, and this is probably the option I'll go with it. As a side note, here, if you can read it, for use with the mini PET or a CBM PET business keyboard replacement. Well, this is actually not a business keyboard. This is a graphical keyboard. But anyway, just a minor detail. So this is the result of the keyboard build. I think it looks quite nice. I've written the letters on top of the keycap, so I can actually see what I'm going to write. I've put in here some connector and attached a flat ribbon cable to the keyboard to connect it to my MicroPET. And spoiler alert, the MicroPET is actually taking input from the keyboard already. But that is something for the next video. So see you then. Thank you and goodbye.